that gives me a segue into the next topic here. And I want to talk about the strategy the Democrats are going to be using next. Now, I will say the Democrats know that they're in trouble. We've got midterms coming up next year, and it's not as far away as it seems. And I think a lot of what they're trying to do and a lot of the mistakes that the Biden administration has made are going to catch up to them. On top of that, you have the fact that at least one chamber of Congress usually changes hands in the midterm election after a presidential election. So they've got an uphill battle here if they want to keep control of the House and keep control of the Senate. By the way, I think they're going to lose the Senate. They barely have it right now. They only have it because Kamala Harris is vice president and she's the tie-breaking vote. But they have a 5-seat lead in the House that could easily go away. So they're going to pull up all of the stops and do everything that they can to keep control of both chambers of Congress. Now, part of their strategy is going to be to find a foil or an enemy to use. They don't have Trump to kick around anymore. He doesn't have social media, so they can't freak out over his tweets. They can't cry their fake tears every time he tweets something that they don't like. He has press releases that he does, and he has kind of like a blog that he's using to communicate, but that doesn't have as much punch as Twitter. He was very effective on Twitter. So they need somebody else. And guess who they're going to use? Actually, I'm going to pause for a second. I want you to guess. Guess who they're going to use to smear the Republican Party and conservative movement. It's going to be more than one person, but I'm talking about one person in particular on this article that I found. Who do you think will become the left's next boogeyman? Come on. Tucker Carlson, that's a good guess. It's not him, though. DeSantis, that's also a good guess. He'll be the runner-up because they will definitely be trying to demonize DeSantis. They're paying a lot of attention to him. Ted Cruz? No, not Ted Cruz. Oh, somebody got it right. Candace Owens, no, she's not that important. Two of you got it right. That one chick that wants to debate AOC. All right, you got it, Shaka. You got it. Also, Rachel got it. She knows. She knew where I was going with this. She knows me. And let's see who else got it right. Violet Ramirez. Well, you put MGT, but it's MTG. It doesn't matter. It is Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're going to be focusing on her like, I don't know, like a Rottweiler focusing on a steak. Here's the article. And this is from The Hill. And according to The Hill, Democratic aides and strategists say that they plan to paint the entire GOP as a party of right-wing conspiracy theorists. So who better to focus on than Marjorie Taylor Greene? Democratic pollster named Molly Murphy, she told The Hill, quote, "I think that she is providing a huge opportunity in the absence of Trump to be a sticking point and a foil for Democrats in campaigns. Quote, all she stands for and represents is a walking depiction of where this Republican Party is going. And I think Democrats would be wise to invoke her and where she is trying to take that party." Now, I agree with that last sentence. I do not believe that she represents where the Republican Party is going. I know a lot of people on the left are hoping that this is what happens, and they're already calling it out. But I don't think it is. But I do think that the Democrats would be very smart to exploit her insanity. They would be very wise to focus like a laser on the stupid things that she says. I mean, because, Trump said a lot of stupid stuff, right? But Greene takes it. I don't. You guys ever watch a Mad TV with Keegan-Michael Key when he played Eugene Struthers? I'm going to do an impression. Trump says a lot of stupid stuff, but Greene, She takes it to a HNL. She takes it to a how never level. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'll give props to anybody who gets that reference. So as part of that too, it's not just going to be Greene, but the article also says that they have their campaign strategy is also going to focus on the efforts of the Biden administration as far as legislation goes. They're going to tout his coronavirus relief package that didn't have much to do with coronavirus at all. And if he manages to get this infrastructure going and some of the other huge spending packages that he wants to pass, they're going to focus on that. But they plan to, quote, highlight controversial remarks Greene has made, as well as Republicans' reluctance to issue any kind of formal punishment against her in Congress. That part might backfire a little bit because they have people on their side who have said crazy stuff while in Congress, and they've done nothing. They not even a slap on the wrist. They give him a slap on the index finger. I'm talking about Rashida Tlaib. I'm talking about AOC. I'm talking about Ilhan Omar. So when they do this, you can expect conservative media, myself included, to point out the hypocrisy. And by the way, and I'll talk about this in something else, but I've already said, I've written the article, like when Republicans take back the House, they need to do to AOC, to Tlaib, and especially to Ilhan Omar exactly what they did to Marjorie Taylor Greene. And you guys know I don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene. But the Democrats unilaterally deciding to strip her of her committee assignments, that's unheard of. Like, that goes against tradition. You let the party handle their own person. We've already seen that the Democrats won't, so they can't get mad when the Republicans don't. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene should be voted out in the primaries. I hope that's what happens. It probably won't, but still. However, it was not up to the Democrats to do this. And when Republicans have control of the House, they should do the exact same thing to send a message that if you keep doing this, we're going to do it to you. So it's going to hurt you as well. I do. I hate that it even has to come to that, but I'll lay out my case for that in another live stream. So Murphy, one of these strategists, predicted that Greene is going to be featured in Democrats' advertising efforts and also fundraising. So they're going to fundraise off of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And here's one interesting point made by a House aide. Quote, Democrats are going to run on popular legislation and Republicans are just kind of disqualifying themselves. I don't know exactly what they mean when they say that, but I think they mean the fact that Republicans don't come with any solutions to anything. Like, they'll see a problem and say, well, let's not do anything. And then while the Democrats say, hey, here's our idea. And then the Republicans say, no, that's a bad idea. Well, what do you got? Well, we got nothing. So that has always been one of the Republican Party's biggest weaknesses. I don't think it'll be enough for the Democrats to keep both houses of Congress. Long term, yeah, but right now, I don't think it's going to work. The aide also said, quote, with Greene specifically, you see someone like House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy just being unwilling and unable to rein her in or stop her from consuming their caucus or really becoming a leader in it, which really does more to disqualify McCarthy and Republican leadership more than anything else. I don't think that part's going to be as effective. I think that, Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't have as big a role as the Democrats want to make it sound. They're going to make it sound that way, but she's not really a leader. She's just very loud, and she is there to get attention. If you notice, she hasn't really introduced any sensible legislation. She hasn't really pushed for policy. I don't even think she understands policy. So she doesn't even have what it takes to become a leader, even if people wanted it to be. Now, the article talks about how she was voted off off of her committee assignments because she had made some remarks before she was in office, and there were stupid things to say. Yet another reason why she shouldn't have been elected, but whatever. But again, Democrats have lawmakers who have made horrible statements while in office. So she also sparked controversy in Washington over a draft from her office regarding the formation of the America First Caucus. Now, you saw me going crazy about this on Twitter because it called for a, quote, common respect for uniquely Anglo-Saxon political traditions. So they're taking America First and trying to turn it into the white caucus in a sense. Now Green ended up saying, "Oh, I didn't know that was put in there." Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. You did, Marge. You knew it was in there. You may not have written it, but you knew it was in there, and you were totally down with it. You were not going to take it out when you found out. So here's what another strategist said. He said, quote, "You need voters on election day to have a picture in their mind of who in Washington is going to be in charge. And I think Republicans always try to do that. But they said, quote, "It is not Kevin McCarthy. It's driven by Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's driven by a number of her colleagues and these people who are in the fringe." Again, it's a smart strategy. I don't think it's going to stick the way they want it to. I think it's going to have some effect. But I think anybody who's more of a moderate or more in the center, they can look and see that she is not in control of this party. If anything, Trump is the leader of the party. And I think the thing is, they would be trying to use Trump if he was on social media. They can't really do much. Trump isn't as useful to them as he used to be. MTG maybe is to a certain extent, but not to the extent that they want. Okay. And then there was another controversy that she got into that the Hill talks about. You remember that this just happened when she pretended that having members of the House wear masks is comparable to what Jews went through in Nazi Germany. Yeah, that was a dumb thing to say. It was dumb. It was dumb. It was dumb. And it's okay to say that. I don't know how many people watching this like MTG. I get it. Well, no, I don't get it, but fine. That's fine. But you have to at least be willing to admit when she says something dumb. And she says a lot of dumb shit. That's just the bottom line. Now, I do not think that particular statement was anti-Semitic. Because if we're going to call that anti-Semitic, then we've got a whole lot of anti-Semites on the left who routinely call conservatives Nazis. So I think they're stupid, but I don't think that they're anti-Semitic. Now, some of the remarks that she made in the past, maybe you can construe that as anti-Semitic. You'd have a better argument for that, but not this particular issue. So that's basically where that's going. They're going to focus on Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm sure if others like her start getting more popular, which I'm pleasantly surprised that this hasn't really happened. I was concerned about Lauren Boebert. I don't know her. I don't know about all that much about her. I know she is controversial as well, but I haven't seen her get that much attention. But here's the other thing that they're going to be doing. Now, I already mentioned them using the defenses of the people who rioted at the Capitol. But in another article from The Hill that I wrote on, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, along with House Democrats, they are planning to conduct their own congressional investigations into the January 6th riot. Now, this was always going to be their plan B, and they kind of hinted that they were going to do this if Republicans chose to vote down the establishment of this 9/11 style commission. The thing about this is that this was intended to be bipartisan. So they were going to have 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and the makeup would have been from both the House and the Senate to launch a further investigation into January 6th. Now, I talked about this last week. This wasn't going to be a serious investigation. This was going to be used for propaganda purposes. They want to keep January 6th in the public's mind for as long as they possibly can. They want to exploit the hell out of this thing. And again, I'm not downplaying it, but at the same time, you can see that the Democrats are trying to do things to make it seem like this is somehow indicative of a larger movement that will be dangerous to the country. That there are, like hidden cells of people who want to carry out riots or carry out political violence on the right, which is very interesting because they pretty much ignored Antifa for the past 4 years. But that whole thing failed. And it doesn't mean that Democrats aren't still going to try to exploit it. So instead of having this supposedly bipartisan commission, which I think would have just been filled with Democrats and never Trump Republicans, the congressional Democrats are going to do their own thing. Now, we saw how the Democrats reacted. They were all butthurt because they didn't get their commission. But at least they get this. Now, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he said he left open the possibility that the Senate will take another stab at passing legislation to launch an external investigation. So he's indicating that they might try this again, which I expect. They're going to try to maybe water it down a little bit to make it more palatable for Republicans. And by the way, there are some Republicans who wanted this because they just want to attack Trump, but there were other Republicans who wanted a commission because they also wanted to investigate what the Democrats may have done wrong, like Pelosi not allowing the National Guard or not having enough security. They think it might expose some other stuff. But at the same time, like Mitch McConnell said, Cocaine Mitch, there are already congressional investigations into the riots. The FBI is already investigating. They're not done investigating. They've arrested a bunch of people, but they're not done. They just recently brought charges against 4 more people who were responsible for planning the riots. So we're already going to learn more about what happened on that day and before that day. That information is already going to come out. So there's not much that a congressional investigation can do that the FBI can't. Now, Nancy Pelosi did state that the Democrats are just going to do their own investigation. Obviously, it won't be bipartisan. They're going to be using whatever resources they have to be able to dig more into this, ostensibly to find the truth about what happened, because, we don't know the truth behind what happened on January 6th. And the thing is there's not a lot of damage they can do. This is just their attempt to salvage as much of this riot issue as they possibly can. That's all this is. They're trying to throw whatever they can against the wall. And when they launch their investigation, it will immediately call into question any results that they find or fabricate or exaggerate or what have you. It's immediately going to be suspect because it's the Democrats doing it. The thing is once they do this, then we're going to say, oh, well, this was a biased investigation, which it 100% will be. They're not going to try to find anything that might indicate that this goes beyond Trump, or that, maybe this wasn't his fault, or maybe that they were already planning it beforehand, or what have you. They're not going to turn up anything that might lessen the scrutiny on the conservative movement. They're going to come up with something that they can use to say, hey, vote for us. Look at what they did with this riot. And Republicans are going to cry foul, and they should. And again, people in the middle will know that this is a partisan investigation. The best chance they had was to be able to say, hey, this is bipartisan. This isn't just Democrats. They can at least give the appearance that there was not an anti-conservative or anti-Trump bias. But now they've lost that. The best chance they had for expanding their exploitation of January 6th was a bipartisan commission to avoid the appearance of political motivation and to at least have a patina of credibility. This is going to prompt accusations of partisanship. Here's the thing. Here's what I'm saying about the riots. The Democrats are still going to try to use it, but they have milked this thing for all it's worth. There is nothing more that they can do with this. Unless some bombshell revelation comes out, it's done. This will no longer be an effective political weapon. Or I'll say this, it is capped out at its level of efficacy. It's already about as potent as it's going to get. Like I said, they milk this thing for all it's worth. They can't squeeze any more water out of the stone. It's done. I'm not saying it won't help them, at least how they've used it so far. But unless there are some new revelations, come 2022, people aren't going to care as much anymore. The only people who will still care are going to be the people who are already going to vote for them anyway. Nobody else does. Everybody sees it for what it is. This was a one-time event. Shouldn't have happened. The vast majority of conservatives criticized it. They condemned it. So we can't even say that Republicans are trying to downplay it. There are some who are. But those people are few and far in between. They are not as common on the right, not as common as what the left is going to tell the nation. They're going to lie to them about it. And they're going to make it sound like these people who supported the riots reflect the broader movement. And we all know that they don't have a problem with fabricating and making shit up. So that's going to be the Democrat strategy. Now, the only thing that could maybe help them is if something else happens, is if some right-wing nut jobs decide to engage in an act of political violence. That's the only way that they can use this more than they already have. They're going to have to figure out something else, because this ain't it, Chief. Yeah, you can focus on MTG. It's smart for them to do that. It's clever, but it's even clever for them to try to exploit the riots. Now, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that it's smart. It's a strategy, but it ain't going to be enough. And I'm sorry, but Biden's stuff isn't going to be enough, because the Biden administration has mishandled things so badly that Americans see it. His approval rating is not where it was. It's steadily going down. And I think it's going to keep doing that. The migrant crisis, that's still a thing. It's getting worse. We've got issues with the economy. We've got issues with inflation. We've got people not going back to work because they're being incentivized to stay home. And because they're in areas like mine, they're afraid of the coronavirus. That's hurting business. I mean, they're not doing very well here. So the Democrats and their close friends and allies in the activist media have a big job ahead of them. They have a lot of spinning to do. And a lot of that legislation, I don't think it's as popular as they want it to be. So what do you guys think?